we might do is walk round the other side, and because there's a gate here and a gate at the other side, and I'll just talk a little bit about it when we get round the other side, and then we'll go in the courtyard and perhaps talk a little bit more. So, yeah. Are you all knackered? Yeah. You've been walking miles. This is a project which we did, what was it, 3 or 4 years ago, ostensibly for Newham Council, although our actual client was called Red Door Ventures, which is an arm's length company that set up by the council. We were approached on a number of sites. This is one of them. And they'd done sort of capacity studies to show what they could get, what they thought they could get. And what they thought they could get here was about 25 flats. And somebody designed a kind of 5-story block which sat pretty much in the middle of the site, where the courtyard is, with space all around it. And I think they came to us because they thought that we might do something a little different, something which felt kind of more, perhaps more urban in a way, and which made the street, because that's kind of feature of most of our work. We think that the street is the basic building block of the city, and that housing in a city like London is about 70% of all of the buildings in London are housing. So the city is made of housing. It's what kind of makes our streets, it's what surrounds our squares, it's what compresses social activity into narrower spaces, and what brings us, in a way, brings us together. And so this is the approach which we took here. And so our building pushes to the very perimeter, to the edge of the site, to make a kind of hard edge to the street. And it also creates a void in the middle of the site. So you're seeing here a sort of veneer of houses going around the outside, and there's another veneer of houses going around the inside. So it's back-to-back housing, you know, and it's a type of housing which was kind of discredited in the interwar period. It was banned actually, I think, just before the First World War, although people continue to do it in cities like Birmingham under local statutes. But I became interested in it as a way of doing housing at relatively high densities while giving people a house rather than a flat. And you know, a lot of people, not everybody, a lot of people, particularly English people, quite like the idea of a house over a flat. That's a generalisation, but I thought it was worth looking at. And I remember doing a talk about one of our sort of early experimental kind of back-to-back housing kind of ideas at the RIBA once, and somebody stood up, and I was kind of singing its praises or the benefits of it. Somebody stood up at the end and said, well, I grew up in back-to-back housing, and it was a nightmare. It was horrible, it was dark, it was dingy, it was, you know, the sanitation was awful. What the hell are you playing at, kind of bringing this back? But then, and I thought, oh dear, you know. But then thankfully somebody else stood up and said, well, I grew up in back-to-back housing, and it was the happiest time of my life. And it reinforced to me something about housing, which is that, and it's an issue I have with design standards, which is that we're not, there are lots of different sorts of people. And one person's kind of hell is somebody else's heaven. And, you know, for some people living on the 30th story at the top of a block of flats with beautiful views over the city, rather separate from their neighbours, is their idea of, you know, of the perfect lifestyle. They've been with people all day, they just want to get away and be on their own. And but for other people that would be difficult. And I suppose this is at the other end of the kind of spectrum in terms of the experience of being in your home. This is very sort of has a very intimate relationship with the street. It's back of pavement terrace housing. It's got a kind of very intense relationship with the street. You're going to meet your kind of neighbours, or at least get to recognise them and know them by sight. And you know, we think there's a potential for people to establish relationships with one another in a street. It's probably a greater potential for that to happen than it would be in a corridor or a lift or a deck. And so that's one of the reasons why we really kind of are interested in this kind of housing. But you know, there's no compunction. You don't have to get to know. You know, some people, you know, the blinds are down and just as they are over there, and you know, we'd rather be on our own. But for others, you know, there's a sort of an interest in kind of making something of these arches. The arches there as in a kind of an echo of the kind of stoop or the porch that you get in kind of certain cultures in the southern states of America and in some Caribbean cultures. And the idea is that it's a space at the edge of the street which kind of connects the street and the interior, and is a space that can be occupied. And you're seeing a couple of examples where that's happening here. And so the arch is kind of, it has a depth to it, and it's an encouragement. It creates a possibility, potential for that sort of thing to happen. So it's the same number of homes that I think the council were expecting, 25, 26 I think, but there are 26 tower houses here. I mean, another reason why this building isn't for everybody is that these are tower houses, so it's effectively one room per floor. You have a kitchen, diner on the ground floor, a bedroom, and then a living room up in the sunshine on the top floor. And unlike most back-to-back housing, which is a single aspect, because that you get this sort of notch cut out of the top floor, the living rooms have a view out over the street, but they also have a view sideways into the little roof terrace. And I'm sad we can't get into one of those because it's quite an unusual layout, and the top floor is a lovely space. What else can I tell you? I mean, the gates were an addition later, and were a disappointment to me. But something else starts to happen when gates go on, and you will perhaps see it when we go in there. There's sort of kids whizzing around on their scooters and bikes and things like that. I suppose if this route here had been on an important kind of movement route for people, I would have been more annoyed. The fact that it doesn't really make much difference to people being able to walk around the area, I suppose, makes it less of an issue for me. But it's kind of out of it wasn't the intention of the project to have gates on there. So should we go and have a... Okay, good. I hope this works. Maybe you're supposed to do 21 and then... Oh, yeah.
The old piazza, Piazza Navona.
So here we are.
Piazza Navona.
Yeah, it could be. Could be. It's always lovely. It's not always lovely to come back. Sometimes it's disappointing, but it's nice to come back here and to see people taking, control of these spaces around the edge and making something of the balconies and using them.
There's something Italianate in it.
Yeah.
The massing there.
Where it jumps up at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a sort of a picturesque kind of sensibility in places. Although there's the social program is really the thing that then we have a little bit of fun in places as well. A bit of a flourish.
So they're 2 bed, 3 bed?
2 beds.
2 beds.
So these are so clearly there's I mean, you can see how thin they are. They're probably no more than 4 meters deep. Those ones facing that way, these ones facing this way. The ones on this side are backing onto other people's houses, so they're not as high. And this is a single rind of houses. There isn't obviously another one on the other side because it's backing onto other people's gardens. And these ones, also 2 bedrooms, but they have their second bedroom in a little outrigger, which is on the back of the block, which spaces it off the boundary. There. Hi, you all right?
Good, thank you.
We won't be long.
Oh, don't worry, it's fine. We're just going.
Yeah. You live up there, do you?
Yeah, we live here. Okay.
Do you like it?
Yeah, we were actually the first family to move in.
Oh, right.
You guys are architects? Or?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah. What else do you want to know?
In terms of construction,
It's traditional construction, cavity work, timber floors.
is the brick load bearing?
It
Or
is.
is it-
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've done other projects where, in order for the arches not to kind of hold things up, they've kind of done a goalpost and built the arches in. But these ones are so I was talking to this gentleman here about the kind of this and also to the lady who said it reminded her of C.R. Mackintosh in a way, and I'm very fond of the sort of the arts and crafts, but the thing that before we start getting into the detail, the thing that underpins what we do is I think is effectively a modernist mindset. There's a kind of logic to the projects which I think is kind of rooted in a kind of social program, which you might call modernist. And in our early work and things like Donnybrook, we were very sort of self-consciously modernist, and it belonged in that idiom of J.J.P. Oud and the early experiments with terrace housing in the 20s. But I got much more relaxed about style, and it's a funny mixture, isn't it?
Mm.
That some people see C.R. Mackintosh in this, other people kind of see different things in it, really. And it's got a peculiar appeal across the. I think we talked about it when we came here. Sort of across the sort of political spectrums, we've got sort of acolytes in the sort of right wing Create Streets crew, and other people like Tom, who I think likes it, who are at the other end of the political spectrum. So that's a strange experience. I feel more comfortable with Tom, but it's really bloody annoying. Actually, they keep sort of going on Twitter and sort of claiming it as something that that crowd, But never mind. Sorry.
Did you say that crowd?
That crowd, the sort of Create Streets, the kind of traditional architecture crew. But I think the whole debate is a complete, ridiculous.
Compared to almost everything we've seen today, even the new blocks going up at sort of Canning Town and stuff, it feels very permanent. It feels, I mean, you said it as a solidity aesthetically, but it also just feels in terms of it. It feels like it's built for 100 years, whereas all the others feel like they're built for 25 years.
Solid mass.
Yeah. Well, our early rendered work was the same. We wanted it to feel kind of chunky and urban and massive and solid and heavy, which is strange because I cut my teeth in Richard Rogers' office where everything has to be as large as possible. But I had a sort of Damascene kind of. I remember there was somebody introduced me to the work of Alvaro Caesar when I was in my 20s, and then Louis Barragan had an exhibition at the AA, and the sort of scales fell from my eyes a bit, and I really enjoyed the sort of poetry and, as you say, the sort of solidity of it, and you're right, in the context of a lot of the very sort of ephemeral and flimsy, kind of framey, kind of clad projects which we see going up all around. It's different.
I think Alvaro Caesar is a very good example of creating what are, I suppose, they're also masonry, but I mean they have a sort of solidity, but they also have a reference back to traditional Portuguese.
That's very true. Yeah. I think that's a good point. That's a good point. Hawksmoor, blimey, okay. Take that. I'll take that.
Now you're
Same
talking.
way as Glaston with the National Theatre, there's a Hawksmoor-esque quality. Yeah.
Do you talk about value engineering? Because you look like you managed to fight off a lot of the value engineering. Is it? I mean, so.
Yeah.
Is that a factor?
this one's survived quite well. I mean, they're all design and build, so you're always a bit vulnerable to that. I mean, the job architect was very bloody-minded, and at one point he was told to seal these, at the first floor level with the balcony, those little windows with the arched heads all the way around, coming out onto the balcony. He was told to take those out and put lintels in, and he just sort of forgot, you know.